Hello and welcome to Social Media Marketing Live. We are a podcast that talks about social media and how social media is a very important tool for marketers to use. Throughout this podcast, we'll be creating a conversation on 6 major points of social media. First, we'll be discussing the benefits of social media. Then we'll jump right into the requirements of social media marketing, then into data privacy and how to stay safe online, then the consequences of not complying with the rules. Then we'll go on to how influencers can use their platform to help promote products. And finally, what the future of social media will look like. I will now be turning it to Haley to discuss the benefits of social media.
Let's hear it.
All right. So as we know, there are so many benefits for businesses and marketing and any users when it comes to social media. So these are only going to increase over the years. So social media is one of the biggest and fastest growing industries. So I'm just going to be discussing some of the advantages that businesses and companies have. These include stuff like brand building, customer reach, customer services. So to begin, social media has become one of the most effective ways for marketing. As we know, almost the entire population uses social media. I don't know about you guys. I have social media. I'm sure you all have social media. I don't know how crazy I'll sound, but my dog has social media. Maybe he'll present it in the next podcast, but yeah, everyone uses social media. So especially during the pandemic, the majority of people will use at least one type of application. With people being so familiar with social media and using it on such a day-to-day basis, this allows businesses to thrive in such a futuristic way. The use of this social technology allows businesses to use this to their advantage. This will gain them a super wide customer reach. They only used to be able to reach their selected markets in such a limited amount of ways. So now with today's social technology usage, businesses can reach so many different markets in so many different ways. This is stuff like sending your company flyer and promotions via email. You can create a website for your business. You can create social media accounts on different platforms. And all of these allow businesses to reach customers all over the world in a push of a button. So with this, the internet and social media gives us such a great pleasure being able to reach the customers and your target audience easily and effectively. This will help gain great exposure through all of these diverse audiences and so on. So brand building. Brand building is one of the most significant parts in starting and sustaining a business. This allows the business to establish a brand name and increase visibility and increase brand recognition. These are all important factors, as we know, as they all lead to success through their effective means. And social media platforms are super easy, effective, super inexpensive. This will bring and drive customers to your business super easily. So social media platforms not only increase the number of visitors to your page, bring customers in, but they'll increase the business's popularity as a whole among such a diverse group of people. This exposure is so important when ensuring that a business is targeting all potential customers and will allow the business to flourish at its best potential rather than only being able to reach a specific group of people. So an example of this, a really good example is gain exposure by putting up signs in one sort of geographical location, a sign or a poster for their business. This would only limit the number of customers that the business would gain. But if you use this by taking a picture of your poster and posting it, now this is all around the world that people can access this photo and see your business's name, and you can get that exposure and that recognition so easily. So marketers value such an inexpensive way like this to gain exposure, And not every business can afford to advertise, especially when they are just at the beginning of starting their company. So Mitchell will go over the ad standards and the requirements because there are a lot, I'm pretty sure. So we'll hear it from him.
Did you know that like with the businesses, the benefits, there's like, like Snapchat like has been throwing out a ton of ads. If you guys have Snapchat, like you recently like, promoting a bunch of other companies, but their revenue has like skyrocketed. Like I think it's like 7 times the amount or something like that. And like it's the highest paid thing for social influencers to work on. They're giving away like $1 million every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And it's so easy for people to get on there and promote their stuff too. So that's great.
Yeah. Like it's so, yeah, exactly. Because it's only like there's no likes or anything with the stories. It's like a TikTok kind of deal. Like it blew up. Like I see it all over like YouTube and everything. Like kids are making like $2-3 million in like a week.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the advertising on social media is basically the exact same as the internet. The key principles are just the ad standards of Canada, the 14 rules. So there's their accuracy and clarity, disguised advertising techniques, price claims, bait and switch, guarantees, comparative advertising, testimonials, professional and scientific claims, imitations, safety, superstitions, and fears, advertising to children, advertising to minors, unacceptable depictions and portrayals. So accuracy and clarity, it's just basically, having a clear message, no, hidden representation or deceptive wording. The advertising techniques must be explicit. Again, nothing hidden. It's just got to be out there for you. No false price claims. So that kind of ties in with the, the bait and switch. It's like when we were talking about it in class. So if they like throw a sticker up on the door, like, 50% off everything, but you walk in and only like half of it's 50% off, you're like, what the hell? It's actually like, they're not allowed doing that. That's the bait and switch method. So if there's like a limited stock or something, it has to be explicitly mentioned. It can't just be like 50% off everything, but it's not. No advertising shall offer a guarantee or warranty unless the guarantee or warranty is fully explained as the conditions and limits. So basically, like what we were just talking about there. A company may not use comparative advertising. So like what we were talking about before, to discredit another company, or what we weren't talking about, it was supposed to be this one, but that was anyways. When we were talking about in class, in like New York, when they were promoting the Big Mac behind the Whopper or whatever, it's like it's not actually that big or whatever. Like they pulled it out. Like there was a bunch of like lawsuits and stuff that were thrown out right after that commercial because again they were discouraging the Big Mac, but I think they offered like an apology out or something afterwards, saying like, "Oh no, like we were just like joking or whatever." I don't know. Do you guys know anything else about that?
Yeah, that's the important part. That's usually a good place to start an apology before you get into the legalities of things like that.
Yeah.
So, and like testimonials, like so if it's scientific claims and stuff, it has to be like 100% accurate. There can be no imitation of another company for their like slogans and illustrations. Like you can just like start chirping another company and mocking them, but not expect any litigation or something to be thrown back at you. The advertising must not depict situations that are unsafe. Like you can't just tell somebody to jump off a bridge and then like they jump off the bridge and you're like, wait, we weren't allowed to do that. You can't exploit superstitions and stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like just trying to draw customers for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
You can't advertise to children that when it would exploit their lack of knowledge or illustrate something that would result in physical or mental harm. And a company cannot advertise to minors in ways that would lure minors to use shit like, like vapes, like tobacco, weed, that kind of stuff. Like, you can't just have all these like fruity flavors and everything for the vapes and then say you weren't like trying to get the younger generation to jump at it, because really who's directed to like candy flavors and stuff? Obviously the younger generations.
Yeah.
And then under no circumstances may a company like discriminate for race or sexuality and gender and stuff. Like, it's 2021. Can't really touch on anything like that. To talk more about data privacy though, Rahmat's got you. Let's hear it.
Let's get into it, boys. All right, first thing I want to get over with. Let me ask you guys all a question here. This is an everyday example here, but have you ever wondered why when you're on Google and you search for, say, a beer case, and then after a while, maybe a couple of seconds later, in a different app, completely different, say for example, Instagram, you see an ad for beer cases, and you wonder how this happened, right?
It's like when you're on the phone
Terrifying.
and you're like, hey man, like, I was looking for that t-shirt, and the next thing you know, the t-shirt pops up on your screen. You're like, they're always listening.
I
Exactly.
find it kind of creepy.
See, that comes from user data itself. So whenever you're online on the internet, there is already an imaginary profile created for you. So anything you search, anything you watch, anything you like or post or even share actually on anything, it will all be tracked into one place, and that data will be sold to many companies, corporations, businesses for them to advertise against you to get a chance for you to get their products. Right? There's mainly three ways that companies can find data about you. The first step is by interacting with you physically. That being said, that you can do it by surveys or them interacting in a conversation with you. Secondly, how they gather your data is online, obviously. Anytime you're on the internet, of course, watching, sharing posts, liking the post, or even talking about it. This data will all be together in your own little profile. Of course, you can't see the profile, but it's there. And the third option is buying your data that some other company might have. And that's how they keep the data circulating around. Of course, when it comes to data, there's two types that you want to know about. One is data privacy, and two is data security. Let me ask you, do you guys know anything about these two?
Not really.
They sound the same to me. Are they the same?
Oh, interesting. Okay, let me tell you right now. Actually,
Okay.
although they sound similar, they're completely different. So data privacy is all about the data being shared, gathered, or used. It's not really particularly about protecting, but rather only monitoring. Data security, on the other hand, is more or less protecting you from attackers or breachers or anyone like that. So mainly just protecting. Of course, while these two sound similar, they're very different.
Mm.
Now, if you want to protect yourself from other corporations or from attackers or anything like that, there's two ways or multiple ways. First, oh sorry, there's a there's for a business standpoint, you can also do this as well, or even a consumer standpoint. So as a business, you can have proper staff training, so they know the proper steps and instructions to follow when a breach or attacker might be attempting it. Two is a safe house, meaning whenever you're trying to protect your data, make sure to have different type of layers on it so hackers will have a harder time to get into it. For example, implementing a VPN, making it harder for them to track the exact location. And three, for businesses, is have a zero trust model. Basically, what this means is by having less people getting access to that private information or all of the users' information they have gathered, only having a minimum amount of people getting access to it will lower your risk of it being exposed or breached out. The more people you have, the harder it is to control. And as for users, actually, there's three things that you can do that are simply easy, but yet again hard to itself. So first one is multi authentication. This basically means in any website or apps or any accounts that you're using, having a multi authentication services basically allows you to have two different passwords into one account. Meaning if a hacker gets into your Microsoft Teams account for one password, they will need to go to a second one in order to fully access it. So this allows it to be harder for them to breach it in. Secondly, is by maintaining constant software updates. Of course, spywares are always consistent, and many companies like Apple need to update their software in order to combat that. So by maintaining constant updates, you're allowing your phone or computer to be safe all the time. And 3 is data backup. You never want to lose all your data, so what you do is backing it up. Just in case a hacker or anyone might be able to erase or take all your data, you want to be able to make sure that you can get it back. So having your data backed up constantly will allow it to be much easier. Now, before I move on here, I want to ask you guys another good example. Have you guys heard of the Cambridge Analytica scandal?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in class, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Actually, no, I didn't. I'm pretty sure we didn't talk about that much in class, but rather it was an
It was
assignment.
assignment on it. That's what it was.
Yes, that's how I think I got it from as well, actually. But basically, the Cambridge Analytica scandal, if no one knows about it, is basically what it's basically back in 2015, the Cambridge Analytica company took Facebook's users over 50 plus million users' information. Of course, the number isn't verified, so it could be less, or it could be more. The highest it can go up to is maybe 80 million,
Dude,
80 million users.
they're covering it up. They're like, nah, no chance we can tell them how much they actually stole.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of even hard to tell, the specific amount, but
For sure.
it is very high, it's very high. But basically, for those 50 million users that Facebook had, Facebook was selling them to third parties, of course. And one of the parties was, of course, Cambridge Analytica. Cambridge Analytica basically took all those people's information and made profiles. With those profiles, they used it to promote political means. So, for example, back in 2015, the American election was happening. And of course, many people skepticized that Cambridge Analytica was helping Trump out by boosting his election's popularity. And of course, Facebook did have a massive consequence when it came to this. And when people found out that their accounts and users' information were being taken away from them, they started to criticize them, right? The media and all the users. And after that, many people decided to leave Facebook for good because they couldn't trust it anymore. Some of those people, including, were celebrities. A good one example is Elon Musk. He simply could not trust it anymore since he's a big person and he has a lot of security needs. So he decided to leave it. Facebook also needed to send the Congress call. In the Congress call, he had to explain what exactly happened on his side of the story and if they were participating in this huge breach. Basically, at the end of the meeting, he was fined with $500,000 due to reported damages, and also he had to slowly build back the trust of many of his users that he had lost.
And wasn't Cambridge Analytica, weren't they like caught for multiple like controversy or whatever on rigging other elections?
I think you're right because Cambridge Analytica is actually based in the UK, and of course Brexit is one of the big politicians over there, right? So I
Yep.
think I'm not correctly 100% sure about this, but I'm pretty sure Cambridge Analytica also helped out the Brexit politicians, giving them popularity and things like that. So that's a good point that you brought it up, actually.
And you said they're pretty low key now, right?
Yeah, actually, you're right. Cambridge Analytica's CEO actually dropped down from his position, and thus the company started going down in business. And of course, the CEO, he faced consequences, I believe, but he's still on the runs. So I think he got what he deserved at the end of the day. So
Sure.
yeah, the next thing I want to talk about is actually staff misunderstanding. So of course, with all this information taking and all this name calling, please do not give any hate to the staff members because at the end of the day, as a simple slogan that I always like to say is, they're simply a fish in a big ocean. They're being controlled by a current. They can't go against the current, but rather only follow it.
That's
The
a good
current in
one.
the situation is the influencers, right? The big corporations and stuff. So they can't really go against them, but rather can only follow them. So that's why they're simply doing their job. So please do not name call them or put shame on them.
They're just a soldier. They're not the ones starting the war.
Exactly. That's a really good point. And next up, we're actually going to go to consequences that Gervon's going to talk about here. So take it away.
Okay, so thank you, Rahmat. So basically, we almost never hear about the consequences of what will happen. We always hear, don't do this, and please don't do that. So I'm actually here to tell you about these consequences. So firstly, Ad Standards Canada upholds the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards. So it deals with all type of misleading marketing campaigns and misleading information while you're doing any type of marketing, especially on social media. So it's easy for consumers to get confused as to what is true and what is not. For example, on Instagram, influencers, they use things such as thanks, brand, or hashtag partner of, which could mean and can imply that they're actually doing an endorsement for that company. But that's not necessarily what they're doing when they're asked what their motives were. So basically, that's not fair for companies that actually had to pay for influencers to come support their company, as well as it's not fair for consumers who actually bought into a specific brand or product that they saw on social media because they thought that a specific influencer was advertising it. So Ad Standards Canada basically accepts any type of complaints that businesses or consumers have, especially consumers. So consumers can come to Ad Standards Canada and they can ask them, do you have something wrong with an advertisement? What something wrong, something that you see that doesn't comply with our rules in the Canadian Code of Advertising Standards? And then they'll start a case. In that case, if they see the need to continue, they'll ask the company to explain themselves, ask them what the motive behind their advertising was. Was it to mislead? Was it intentionally to mislead? Did it just come off wrong? And depending on that answer, Ad Standards may continue on top of that. And they'll just ask them to take off the advertisement or make a replacement for that advertisement, which if you happen to lose the advertisement per Ad Standards Canada request, it can hit hard, especially if you put a lot of money into a marketing campaign. Lots of time, lots of effort, lots of money to actually advertise with that advertisement will be lost. So the Competition Bureau is another one. It upholds the Competition Act, which covers all misleading and false representations while doing marketing. So their fines are pretty hefty. Do you guys want to guess how big those fines are?
Tell me about it, man. Tell me.
All right. So the fines could range from $750,000 to $10 million.
10 million?
Wow.
Do you know what like the average fine is? Like for I guess the small fish, not like a big fish?
Yeah, so basically it's not necessary. It depends if you're an individual or you're a company, right?
Yeah, that's what
So
I mean. Like a small fish. I mean, like just let's say I was posting an ad or something and I got fined.
oh, okay. So they would just go around probably 750,000. The max fine is 1 million for an individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for a company, like a corporation, it would be like probably 10 million to maximum fine 15 million. Like it depends on what they find in the case. It depends if they saw that you intentionally tried to mislead, intentionally tried to do something that's outside
like
of
the severity of it all.
Yes, exactly. So the Competition Bureau deals with that. So yeah, basically you just don't want to go outside of the rules when you're doing any type of advertising, especially on social media. And furthermore, there's also misleading things in data privacy. So basically, to bring up Facebook again, we already heard about their scandal with Cambridge Analytica, but they also had other things. They have actually many things. So one of them was the Competition Bureau decided to conduct an investigation on Facebook because people were making claims that they were being misleading with their data privacy methods, like their what they say they do with their privacy. So basically, they were fined $9 million penalty, and the investigation that the Competition Bureau actually conducted, Facebook had to pay for it themselves. So on top of the $9 million, they paid for it with $500,000. Yes, so you just don't want to step in that type of mud, right? Really, you don't want to go against the rules and get heavy fines.
Sure.
Especially that the Competition Bureau deals them out pretty thick. Now, I'd like to talk about the OPC, which is the Office of Privacy Commissioner of Canada. So basically what they deal with is they uphold the Privacy Act and they uphold PIPEDA, which, do you guys want to guess what PIPEDA is? Do you know what it is?
Oh, well, I did this one like on one of the assignments last time. No, I don't even know.
All right, so it's the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. It'd be hard to remember. So basically, the OPC, they uphold that, but they're not necessarily something that gives fines. They're just more there to negotiate and lead you into the right direction when talking about consumer data and everything that has to do with that, especially for social media, right? So if you're a company and they tell you to go check back something that you did wrong, something that they find that they did wrong when they were conducting an investigation against you, it's in your best interest to comply, because if not, they could take you to federal court, and then they'll ask you to follow what the OPC told you to do initially. On top of that, they could give you fines up to $100,000 for not complying and destroying any type of evidence you had and whatever not. So it just becomes a big mess. You just want to comply with what the OPC is saying regarding data privacy. You don't want to try to be shifty, go against the lines, just follow the straight line and you'll be doing well. So finally, with all that I've said, it just revolves around, just be honest, just be plain and simple. Don't go around the bush. You'll get heavy fines, and you'll depending on if you're a starter company, if you're a big corporation, you could get heavily belted with fines.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it. So I'd just like to pass it over to Jordan so we could speak more about influencers.
Thank you, Gervon. That was really well said. So with the increase in popularity for social media, many opportunities continuously arise for marketers to promote their products to a large audience of people at a low cost and at real time to attract customers. Although instead of just posting about promotions onto their own accounts, where only the people who are following that page can see, there's been a new type of marketing called endorsements. An endorsement happens when marketers pay a famous user or celebrity in money or free products in exchange that they must post the product or promotion onto their own personal page for their followers to see. This could be a tweet on Twitter, it could be an Instagram story, a post, or even a clip on YouTube. Really, the possibilities are endless when it comes to influencers posting, since there's so many different types of social media platforms now and different ways to market. I'm sure everyone has at least seen one type of influencer marketing in their lifetime, if it was on Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, or any of the other big platforms. So why do they do this is the big question. Like, what is the benefit of doing it? So these are the two questions that always come up when talking about influencer marketing, but it happens to actually be a win-win situation for both the company and the famous influencer. For the influencer, they're receiving a cash incentive or free products to just post a product that they may already like for a set amount of time. It makes sense for the company as well because to pay the influencers for posting, because once the influencer posts the promotion onto their account, now their millions of followers get exposed to the advertisement and the company reaches a whole new audience that they've never been able to reach before. Although this all sounds great, marketers and influencers really need to be careful since ad standards is pretty hard on influencer marketing. So for a marketer, they really need to ensure that they've included all the information needed for the influencer to avoid getting in trouble when posting the promotion. So the things that marketers need to ensure before the influencer posts a promotion is that they have to ensure influencers clearly disclose material connections with the company. So that should be through at the top of a description or at the start of a video. They should announce that it is a paid advertisement, or use hashtags like #ad or #brand_partner. Marketers must ensure that representations are not false or misleading, and they have to verify that influencers are not making any performance claims on behalf of the company unless they can be proven or tested. The influencers can't make up any other information on the product or anything to make the product sound better. Everything has to be from true experiences. But now for influencers, many of the pre-post evaluations are the same, but they must ensure that disclosures are visible so consumers don't have to try and find disclosure, such as in a drop-down menu or just a tag or a URL link. It must be in the opening section or clear that it is a paid advertisement. They must disclose material connections with the companies. They have to use clear and contextual appropriate words and images, ensure that disclosures are inseparable from the content so they always travel together when shared, base all the experience and opinions from the company on real experiences, and they must also avoid using any abbreviations or slang so everyone from all ages can understand the points in the post. Mainly, it's straightforward, and that an endorsement made by an influencer must be factual, legit, and completely based on true experiences with the company. It's also very important to disclose that it's a paid advertisement right away so people reading the post can understand, or watching a video will understand that. Like Gervon said, non-compliance could result in the influencer and marketer being seriously fined, and the post could be taken down that they've spent a lot of money and time on. The influencer posting can get fined up to $750,000, with the company could get fined up to $10 million. So they really just want to make sure that they're following all the requirements necessary and abiding by the rules. So next, we'll be handing the floor over to Haley to discuss what the future of marketing will look like.
All right, thank you. So on the topic still of influencers, we obviously see them everywhere online on our phones and videos, but they're going to be a really big part in the future of social media. They're completely on the rise. They have a bunch of followers, and they can leverage their audiences. They collaborate with brands, and they generate revenue, and the brands generate or gain exposure. So a really great example that I wanted to talk about is Gymshark. I don't know if you guys know Gymshark or you have any clothing from them.
Yeah,
I don't know.
What?
Yeah, okay. So anyone who doesn't know, they're a fitness apparel brand. So they've collaborated, with many familiar faces. You might know David Lade, Dylan McKenna, a lot of other popular athletes.
Chris Bumstead.
Sorry?
I said Chris Bumstead, Mr. Olympia last year.
Yeah. So they have a bunch of people who are affiliated with them that make sense to be affiliated with. So these are athletes for a fitness apparel brand. So it makes sense. And their followers are going to see Gymshark, and Gymshark's followers are going to see them. So it goes around perfectly in a perfect circle. This will only increase as the industry becomes more and more popular. Another thing off the topic of influencers is artificial intelligence, or AI. There's also some chatbots. So they're another piece of technology that we'll definitely see more of in the future. AI has made it a much easier experience for customers to reach out to the companies through social media. So this will improve your customer service for a business, and this will improve customer satisfaction, which is what every business would want. So after all of that, where are we?
Boom.
Good understanding of social media. I don't know if you guys your brains are hurting or you're pretty confident with the topic, but it's a super vast industry. You can post a picture of you and your family. You could create a status post, send an email. We wouldn't be talking here today without social media. So it gives us the great pleasure of always having the world at your fingertips. So we've discussed topics like data privacy, requirements, ad standards, consequences for non-compliance, influencers, benefits, our social future. Hopefully we took a lot from. And like I said, a lot, it's very diverse and very vast, but hopefully with all the information we learned today and we talked about today, we can conclude that the important topics that we discussed will shed light on such an interesting and important aspect of social media and marketing law. So yeah.
Ooh.